Of course, one of the questions that we ask with the capuchins, are they using a gait that is characterized by the same mechanics that we think govern human gaits? And the way to track that is to simply record substrate direction forces and then calculate or get the variables out of it that are needed to calculate potential and kinetic energy. And if you look at these two equations, potential energy, there are two constants in there, mass and gravitational force, and one variable, which is the change in height, the fluctuations in height of the center of mass. And here's the kinetic energy equation. Again, two constants, 0.5 and mass, and one variable, the velocity of the center of mass. And if you kind of think of forces that exchange with the ground, forces mass times acceleration. So if you integrate it twice, first you get rid of the mass term, integrate it once, you get velocity out of it. That allows you to get to solve this equation. If you integrate it twice, you get displacement. Velocity is distance or displacement over time, and that allows you to calculate the potential energy. And Cavagna, he developed equations that tells you how much energy recovery do you have, so exchange, how much exchange do you have between potential and kinetic energy. And I told you before that kind of the ability to kind of regain one or the other form of energy has to do with the phase relationship between these two fluctuations, and that is described in a term called congruity. And that allows you to evaluate how much potential do you have to use a bouncing ball kind of mechanism, so like we do in running. And finally, there's an equation that allows you to calculate how much work do the muscles have to perform to accelerate the center of mass up and down. So this is simply what we adopted for our capuchin study, but we also wanted to get some basic kinematics and see how similar are the movement patterns that these guys use in their bipedal gait to what we do when we walk or run around. So we had 5 animals total. Capuchin monkeys are quite clever monkeys. They are not easy to work with, and we couldn't get a full data set for all of them, but we pieced it together and recorded substrate reaction forces, calculated the energies in a way that I just described, and then put the reflective markers on them and filmed them with multiple cameras, digitized joint coordinates, and a lot of it is in our application is actually manual digitizing, so it's not auto-digitizing of little ball-shaped markers, but we work hard on this. And we got joint coordinates then for a total of 30 bipedal strides, and extracted joint angles from them, but also some temporal gait parameters like the percentage of stance duration in overall stride duration, which tells you whether a gait is a running gait versus a walking gait. So whether walking, we always have at least 1 foot on the ground, often for a short period of time 2. In running, you have a short period where both feet are off the ground, and that is described here as a duty factor being below 0.5. So duty factor is simply the percent of stance duration in overall stride duration. Oh, here's my video again. Okay, so let me start out with a few kinematic data. First of all, you have maybe already gotten an idea from looking at the video that capuchins are quite upright as they walk bipedally and walk on 2 legs, and the angle that the trunk forms with the vertical here is on average 23 degrees. And here you see for our 30 strides here how they maintain such an angle over the stride. The stride starts out with a touchdown, and then then the limb lifts off and goes to the second touchdown. So here we have a stance phase, and here is the swing phase. And you see that these animals manage to keep that angle pretty constant. If you just trace one of these strides here, there's not much change in that angle, so they walk with a fairly stable trunk without lots of sway and movement. And this is a stick figure representation of two strides of a capuchin. So we digitized these joints on one side only. So these are the major joints. You know, the shoulder, the kind of the tip of the iliac blade here, the hip, the knee, the ankle, and the toe bone, the metatarsal on the right side of the body, and the animal is moving from left to right. And you see that the kind of these points, you know, the shoulder point here and the hip point here, they fluctuate in height, which we also see in people here. But if you compare the fluctuations during the stance phase, when in humans the center of mass and the hip and trunk, they raise up, in capuchins they drop. So this is what you would see in human, and this is what the monkeys do. So they collapse into flexion during the stance phase. They don't use an extended leg, but they use a leg that is not only highly flexed, but as they enter stance, it flexes even more. And we call this a bent hip, bent knee gait. And you can see this, you can trace it again over a stride, you know, by just tracking hip height during stance and swing. So again, from the first touchdown to the lift-off, beginning of the swing phase, to the second touchdown of the same limb. And here you see that fairly consistent drop in the hip joint during the stance phase of gait. And if you just track the knee angle and the hip angle, you see that these angles, you know, they reach a maximum of 140 to 145 degrees. So they never come even close to a 180-degree angle that would kind of characterize a fully extended joint. So both of their joints are quite highly flexed, and again very consistent throughout, you know, throughout multiple strides here. And let's look at the same stick figure again, and now see what happens during the swing phase. So let's concentrate on this part here as the limb swings forward. And one thing that you see is that the foot hangs down. When we walk, we kind of dorsiflex at the ankle. We do this, and then we have ground clearance that is virtually millimeters off the ground. And when these monkeys walk, their foot hangs down like this. And in order for the toes to clear the ground, what they have to do is they have to flex their hip and they have to flex their knee, otherwise the toes would hit the ground. And this is what you see here. So during swing, they even flex their hip and their knee more than during the stance phase. And we call this a high stepping gait that we sometimes see in humans as a pathological condition when you know the muscles in the anterior compartment of the leg that allow you to dorsiflex your foot don't work, are paralyzed, then the foot hangs down, and then humans have to do the same as capuchin monkeys. They have to kind of adopt a high stepping gait for the toes to clear the ground. And in these conditions, humans also lose the ability to heel strike, which is what we normally do. So the foot slaps down and makes contact with the forefoot first. And this is what you see regularly in capuchin monkeys. They do not touch down with the heel like humans do when they walk, but they touch down with the forefoot, with their metatarsals.